What is the average retirement income?
Most people don't actually know the answer. They just feel like it's probably not great. We all hear the same story. People are behind. Retirement is getting harder. And more seniors are working longer than they planned just to keep the lights on. Some rely on family. Others lean heavily on government programs. And for many, the idea of a comfortable, carefree retirement feels distant. So today, let's put feelings aside and look at the numbers. Because the reality is both more surprising and more revealing than most people expect. But first, quick pause. If understanding money before it becomes a problem matters to you, help a duck in a suit spread the word. Subscribe. It helps more people hear this while there's still time to act. All right, let's talk about income. Even though retirement savings are higher than they were a few years ago, a huge number of retirees still depend heavily on Social Security. According to the Social Security Administration, about 12% of men and 15% of women aged 65 and older rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. That's not a small supplement. That's the foundation. And that dependence doesn't come from laziness. It usually comes from a mix of limited savings, rising healthcare costs, and sometimes the need to support adult children or other family members. Originally, Social Security was designed to supplement retirement income, not replace it. But for many retirees today, it's doing most of the heavy lifting. Without it, a lot of people wouldn't just be uncomfortable, they'd be stuck working far longer than their bodies want to, or relying on family just to get by. So what does retirement income actually look like? According to recent data, the median monthly income for US adults aged 65 and older is about $4,199 per month, or just over $50,000 per year. Now, here's an important detail. Not everyone over 65 is fully retired. Some are still working part-time or even full-time. Most data sources don't clearly separate retirees from non-retirees, so there's a grey area here. In fact, retirement today is often gradual. A 2024 Fidelity survey found that about 2/3 of Americans plan some form of phased retirement, working less before fully stopping. Gallup data shows that between 2016 and 2022, about 70% of people ages 65 to 69 were retired, 83% of those 70 to 74, and 88% of those 75 and older. Very few people retire early. Among those 60 to 64, only about 32% were retired. Between 55 to 59, just 11%. And ages 50 to 54, only 6%, which tells us something important. For most Americans, retirement isn't a sudden event. It's a slow transition, often shaped by necessity, not choice. And income in retirement varies dramatically depending on where you live. Some states see retirees earning more than twice what retirees earn in other states. That difference comes down to wages during working years, cost of living, tax rules, and weather.
Pensions are common. In high-wage states, people often save more because they have to. In lower-cost states, retirees may need less income to get by. Tax policies matter too. Some states are far more retirement-friendly than others.
All of these factors combine to create a wide spread of retirement incomes across the country. But income is only half the story. To really understand what retirement feels like, we need to look at spending and what retirees are actually living on. And that's where the picture gets even more interesting. So now let's talk about the other half of the equation, spending. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Americans age 65 and older spent an average of about $57,800 in a year. If you're paying attention, that number is higher than the median income we just talked about. How does that work? Part of the answer is simple. Retirees generally spend less than younger households, roughly $20,000 less per year on average. Work-related costs disappear, commutes shrink, cars last longer, and many people enter retirement with their mortgage mostly paid off, or they downsize to something cheaper. Housing costs often fall, transportation costs drop, and retirees are no longer contributing to retirement accounts, which lowers outflows. But here's the uncomfortable truth hiding inside those averages. A lot of retirees are spending more than their income. They're bridging the gap with withdrawals, Social Security, and sometimes debt. And yes, debt in retirement is far more common than most people think. Roughly 60% of Americans over age 65 carry some form of debt. That includes credit cards, car loans, mortgages, and home equity borrowing. Not all debt is bad, but when income is fixed, even manageable payments reduce flexibility fast. Now, layer in inflation. Prices for groceries, healthcare, housing, and insurance have risen faster than the incomes many retirees rely on. Social Security does adjust for inflation, but often not enough to fully protect purchasing power. So even if the monthly check stays the same, its real value keeps shrinking. That's why many retirees feel squeezed, even if the numbers on paper look stable. Now let's talk about net worth, because this is where a lot of confusion comes from. The median net worth of households, where the head is age 65 to 74, is about $410,000. For those 75 and older, it's around $335,000. At first glance, that sounds not terrible, but there's a catch. Those figures include the value of the home, and for many retirees, the home is the largest asset by far. Once you subtract home equity, liquid savings and investments often look much thinner. That means the financial cushion available to cover healthcare, emergencies, or rising costs is smaller than it appears. A house can store value, but it doesn't pay monthly bills unless you sell it, borrow against it, or downsize. That's why Social Security still plays such a huge role. At the start of 2024, the average monthly Social Security check was about $1,977, or roughly $23,700 per year. Married couples receive close to double that, around $46,000 per year. Helpful? Absolutely. Sufficient on
Its own? Usually not. This is why so many retirees rely on a mix of income sources: Social Security, withdrawals, and sometimes part-time work, just to maintain a basic standard of living. And here's the key distinction that ties everything together. There's a difference between being net worth comfortable and being cash flow comfortable. You can't live off furniture, you can't buy groceries with your car, and you can't turn illiquid assets into income without friction. What actually matters in retirement is sustainable, spendable income. That's why two people with the same net worth can live completely different retirements. One has flexibility, the other has stress. The good news? If you're watching this before retirement, you're already ahead of the average. Starting earlier, saving consistently, building investments that actually generate income, even reaching half the average goals, paired with Social Security and controlled expenses, can dramatically change what retirement feels like. The goal isn't luxury, it's security. Not worrying about basic needs, not being forced to work when your body says no, not living one medical bill away from panic. So when you hear average retirement income, don't just think about the number. Think about what that income can actually do for your life. Because retirement isn't about looking rich on paper, it's about having money that shows up for you every single month. And that's something you can still build, quietly, starting now.